Unexpectedly Human is really about putting people at the center of everything that we do.
Today, Ben Kaplan sits down with Jennie Platt, the Chief Marketing Officer at TD Bank US.
We know not only your name, but your dog's name. That is core, and we want to service you, and we want to provide advice.
Jennie's not your typical CMO. She's leading marketing for one of the largest banks in America, and she's doing it with a fresh perspective on what it means to connect with people.
Some companies are customer focused and others are data or mechanical. They're engineering focused companies, and you kind of got to pick.
I think they are not mutually exclusive. It's actually one is dependent upon the other.
In this conversation, she shares insights on building authentic brands, using data to actually understand customers, not just track them, and what it takes to create genuine human connections in a digital world.
It's really more about those kind of personal life and behavior moments that we're trying to understand, because that's when you can drive the most relevance.
If you want to know what real innovation looks like in financial marketing, you're in the right place.
I think the true measure of our success is in...
There's this tagline for TD that is unexpectedly human. It shows up everywhere. What does that mean? Is it more than a tagline? And how does that impact just how you think about marketing as US CMO?
It is absolutely more than a tagline. So when you think about TD, we are a top 10 bank in the US. We've got over 10 million customers, 1,100 branches. We call them stores. We're Maine to Florida in terms of our footprint. But I think the true measure of our success is in our unique culture at TD and our beloved Unexpectedly Human brand that we've really established since entering the US market just 20 years ago. Unexpectedly Human is really about putting people at the center of everything that we do. It's not just a campaign. It's not just a tagline. It is truly who we are. And bringing that brand and that promise to life is a collective effort by the 28,000 US colleagues across the bank. I always tell people TD feels like a bank that truly has a heart and a soul. And I think that's because we believe that people matter the most, and we're constantly trying to innovate and reimagine banking as our customers' needs evolve. And through, over the years, evolved positioning, this human-centric approach, landing on Unexpectedly Human as that platform, and embedding the notion of putting people at the center and everything, we've really solidified our position as a top 6 financial services brand in the US in our footprint. And that translates to being number 5 nationally and number 1 regionally in both consideration and trust.
Your experience in the financial services sector, you were at American Express for a number of years. So you know the sector well. So take us through what that actually means. Like what does the typical bank do, and let's say in a marketing channel? And because you have this Unexpectedly Human approach, what do you do that would be distinctive or different? Like how does that show up in a channel or an approach or a strategy that is different from the norm, which is, a fairly sophisticated, good amount of spend in this particular industry. And I'm sure they're not saying we're the robotic mechanical bank that doesn't have a soul. So how do you show up differently?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think every bank, every company wants to put people at the center. And I think it comes down to your ability to do that consistently and across channels. And you're right to bring up channels, because if you go back to, banking many years ago, before digital was such an important part of the marketing mix, so much of it was how you truly showed up in person. People would come into a branch and you were having literally human interactions. That continues to be very, very important to TD. People do still interact with us, with all banks in a branch environment, and having that legendary customer experience and that personal feel. Someone walks into one of our stores and knowing who they are and that recognition, and we know not only your name, but your dog's name, that is core, and we want to service you and we want to provide advice. But it has to extend so much beyond just that store branch channel. And that's where we are embedding this kind of human approach throughout everything. When you think about product enhancements, digital innovations, whether it's things like TD Early Pay, where we make direct deposit funds available to customers 2 days earlier, giving them all kinds of customizable alerts to better manage their finances. A small business insights dashboard that integrates accounting software to provide really rich insights on trends, on cash flow, on benchmarking. we flow it through to the way we think about product innovation. We recently launched a TD accessibility adapter. It's designed actually by TD colleagues, and it helps address individual online visual accessibility preferences. And it was launched, to the public for free through Google Chrome. And another one of my favorites that we've launched at several of our stores, both in the US and Canada, is our doggy ATM. It's a doggy automated treat machine. So think about someone comes in, they're getting cash out of an ATM, and their dog is able to go to the doggy ATM and with the touch of a paw, get a doggy treat. So things like that, I'll take it to the marketing space and talk a little bit about Martech. I mean, when you talk about putting human at the center, we've invested a lot in marketing technology to allow us to be able to consolidate our data to connect our channels and to really develop orchestrated customer journeys and communications that are personalized and relevant. And those are other examples where we want it to feel like no matter when and where a customer is interacting with TD, walking into a store, engaging with us online, receiving a marketing communication, that we know who they are, that we are putting their needs at the center, and that we're able to orchestrate conversations that really feel like they're on a journey and we're having a conversation with them over time.
Well, and it sounds like, just listening to you, when you've mentioned a few times in that, like, we know who you are, whether you walked in a branch, we know your name, we've given your dog a treat, I guess, and others. So how much of this is just like kind of personalization on the back end, where really it's personalization, and it sort of sounds a bit product led, maybe, meaning that you could do something like just a marketing communication about, like, we love pets at TD, but you're trying to like extend it to a product where I guess, you go to the ATM and there's something for your pet there. So how much of that is just like really just personalization and everything you're trying to do, and also this notion of a little bit product led, because as CMO, you were listing a bunch of different products is kind of where you started.
Yeah, I think it's everything above. I mean, I think the reason that we can stand behind the unexpectedly human value proposition is because it is not just marketing, but it includes leveraging data to truly understand our customers, demographics, preferences, behaviors, consolidating all of that data to then be able to figure out what is the right next thing we can help them with, whether that's an offer, whether that's advice, whether that's helping them through a life stage moment that we have picked up on because of the data that we're leveraging. But it's also, when they show up in person, having those kind of truly human interactions and spending the time to make someone feel really seen and really heard. And then it's working with our product teams. I mean, as a marketing function, we obviously full funnel. We do a lot of brand advertising to tell our story, that we believe there's a human behind every transaction, and how do you put that into a compelling ad? But we also work so closely with our product teams to make sure that this human centricity is embedded into product development. And those were some of the examples I was speaking about. But we see it as all of our colleagues have the responsibility to be stewards of this brand and to demonstrate what unexpectedly human looks like and feels like, whether you are a frontline banker interacting with somebody in a store, whether you're developing or managing a product, whether you're a marketer who's developing a campaign, or someone, on the back end managing all of the technology and the data to allow us to better understand our customers and serve them the right message at the right time.
Does it change the marketing mix? What I mean by that is, like, we've done a lot of work, for instance, for Budweiser. Budweiser is very diligent about, because they have sort of like, I mean, across a few brands, but they have like, $1 billion in spend a year, really, across everything. They're big spenders.
I wish I had $1 billion in spend, just to be clear.
Okay, yes. But they will go in and sort of say, like, when you spend that much, what is the purpose of each spend? Are we doing it the most efficient way possible? Meaning, this is brand awareness play, this is consideration. If we're doing brand awareness, we sponsor every music festival. We do these, with us, that we do a lot of like earned media campaigns in between their big activations. And they want to know, well, for brand awareness, what's more efficient? The big dollar sponsorship of that music festival, or doing these like nimble guerrilla marketing things with the folks at top to do it. And so we'll calculate all of that and give them a comparison. So the reason I'm asking the marketing mix is that if you care a lot about sort of, this human approach, it means, and if you want to like know people's name, there's certain channels that are good for that. And there's certain channels that are, big levers that are not great for that, and are changing. I think of TV as one, but if we do more like connected TVs, maybe there's more we can do. So how does just impact the mix? Yeah, is the mix different than it would otherwise be?
We spend a lot of time on mix, and obviously have media mix models that help us kind of come to these decisions. But I would say it's a really interesting challenge within any marketer's job. And when I think about TD, because the answer to getting the right mix varies, depending on your objectives, depending on the geography within our footprint we're talking about. So for TD, we are a top 10 bank. We love to be known and loved by even more people within the US. So we have brand building work to do. And it's really important that we have presence and are driving that awareness and consideration through traditional brand building mechanisms. We do leverage TV, connected, sometimes linear. We have a lot of digital and online video that helps us with those objectives. We do out of home. We leverage our sponsorships to create that awareness and to connect our brand with the sponsorship partners that we have so much alignment in terms of values with. But I see it as it's got to be a connected funnel. We do that work and we invest a good amount in order to increase the number of people who know about us and will consider us. But then we're very focused on how do we move them through from consideration to performance and actual acquisition marketing. So the paid media strategies that we leverage in traditional channels, honestly, direct mail, email, we've got an incredible opportunity to deepen relationships with our existing customers and be able to cross-sell other products. Email is a very cheap and owned channel, and to be able to do that in addition to kind of on-site digital channels. But our store is really important, and the way our marketing shows up in our stores and connects to the customer service that's being delivered. So to me, it's really about how you build the right mix. And in a market like the Mid-South, we have more brand building that we need to do. We want to put more dollars towards that awareness and consideration. In a market like New York or Boston or Philadelphia, where our brand awareness is much higher, you're going to see that mix shift to more of the let's get them through from consideration to actual acquisition. And the last thing I'd say is that you can't, the importance of engagement marketing, I really want to underscore, because that's something that I think is so critical for us, which is, yes, you get someone, you spend the money to acquire them. We have a lot of conversations about how much of our marketing dollars and just efforts need to go into onboarding, engaging, retaining our existing customers so that we are primary, so that they have deep relationships with us that cut across all of our different product lines. And so a large part of our strategy when we think about mix is, are we getting that balance right across, brand awareness, the acquisition efforts, and then the ongoing engagement and retention, which you've got to keep getting good at and evolving as you have new data, new tools, new technology to better know and understand who your customers are.
I think in financial services, I think one of the things you see a lot, certainly, and adjacent fields like insurance or other things, where there's like a lot of services you can provide, and you're trying to sort of be like, for the entire life cycle over time of the client, you're trying to offer services, is you can spend a lot of time like marketing to your existing customer base, right? Expanding services, new offerings, deepening the relationship. It's why, you might want a recent college student or a college grad that maybe isn't worth as much to you now, but could be one day worth a lot to you, that you would still get them early. So how much of if you're just going to split your efforts, like how much of it is like your existing base, shore up the base, give them new products, versus let's bring in someone new who just like has never walked into a TD bank store before?
I would say those are very equal priorities to us. And we have teams decked against both of those objectives and working closely together so it feels like a connected experience. For us to continue to accelerate our momentum in the US, we've got to keep attracting more and more prospects to become TD customers. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about what are those right segments, areas to focus to bring in the people who, to your point, are going to be quality customers over time. And you have to have the long-term view on that. It's great to get somebody in right out of college as they're starting out. So many people stick with the bank that they had. The first bank they had becomes their bank for life. And so winning that loyalty early on in someone's journey is an incredible opportunity. But you think about being able to service customers over their entire life. I love the idea of supporting people through every life stage, all the way through retirement planning. And so we have a big focus on understanding the existing customers on the book, what are their needs, what are the products and services that we can continue to deepen and deliver value to them with, and how do we keep leveraging new tools and technology to get better and faster at understanding what those needs are.
And if you're unexpectedly human, you know everyone by name. I mean, there's a lot of people out there. So how do you think about just like, do you try to focus or narrow down the ideal customer? Or do you try to go for segments or differentiate with other, some banks are really big into, small business owners and entrepreneurs, and they're going to go heavy into that. And other banks will have a different orientation. Is it just everyone, or how do you define sort of your kind of ideal customer and their like need state?
We look at segmentation all the time, and I would say we have a lot of different priority segments, and we have very specific cross-functional efforts between marketing and product and digital and technology decked against those different segments. And so one example is mass affluent.
What does that mean? Mass affluent means it means like a very democratic view of affluence, meaning there's a lot. Is that what mass affluent means, or does it mean something different?
If you were to look at a spectrum of affluence based on levels of investments and deposits and things like that, it's kind of a middle tranche where we see them as having potential to be wealth customers one day that would have an advisor with us or would have, an investment portfolio. At this stage, they're probably, potentially deposit customers with that clear potential to become a long-term investment client as well. And so we develop value propositions that allow us to better service and have the right products and marketing geared towards clients who have that emerging need to have, strong financial management across all of their different aspects of managing their finances. So we develop value propositions that say we're going to have a dedicated relationship banker who's going to help you across deposits and your investment needs. We're going to recognize that you are one of these customers and give you certain, benefits that are unique to that segment. Small business is another priority segment where we have very specific efforts decked against those customers who we either know are a small business or we're leveraging data to assume that they likely are a small business owner. And how do we gear our marketing and our products and services, whether those are credit card products or deposit accounts or merchant solution offerings, to those customers. So we definitely leverage segmentation throughout everything that we do. It's a close partnership between marketing and the business. And we're really excited about the opportunity to continue to use data to better understand what the needs of these specific segments are so we can keep getting better at delivering on the unique needs. And so when you think about the way TD shows up in communities, and I think this is one thing that's really unique about it, we have such a deep focus on supporting our customers, but also the broader communities in which we live and work. And so whether it's, thinking about thematic areas like generational wealth and how do we support small businesses in building generational wealth, or affordable housing and what products and services and initiatives do we have in place to help people who need housing the most be able to go get that housing, whether it's through mortgages, or other kinds of support and loans and education. Inclusive innovation. We are a bank that thinks about customers' needs and everything that we build. And so how do we talk about the ways that we are showing up for our customers, understanding their needs, and sponsorships. The fact that we have really strong sponsorships throughout our footprint, and so many of them are focused on supporting communities in partnership with those sponsors. And so we do a ton of work, for example, with the Boston Celtics and the TD Garden and the TD Bruins. We do something called small business takeovers, where we let a small business in our portfolio take over all of our advertising space at the TD Garden for the duration of a game and really kind of give them the spotlight to be able to showcase what the small business is and create that awareness in their local community for the amazing products and services that they have to offer. We do all kind of community events with the Celtics to renovate gyms and show up at community centers and hold clinics for, basketball kids to get a chance to play basketball with the Celtic, but also learn about the importance of sports and the leadership skills that can come from that. So I think for us, it's been really about telling our story of what it means to be unexpectedly human and how the impact that we're able to have in our communities and with our customers, and even, people who are learning about us for the first time, that we really are doing good things out in the world. And that's really been the focus of our communication during this past year and just on an ongoing basis.
What do you take from your time at American Express specifically? What did you learn there? What does American Express do well that you would love to incorporate in your role now?
Yeah, I started my career at American Express. I spent 11 years there. It was a great place to start out and to really build a foundation. I think American Express is a very strong brand. It's very well respected. It is thought of as a customer centric brand that does really well with, having outstanding products geared towards certain segments. And it's also culture wise, just internally, it was a great place to work where people really worked collaboratively in teams around kind of a clear mission and a common goal. And so it was a really good, rich, kind of foundational learning ground for me to build upon. And I think a lot of the things that now that I'm at TD many years later, I'm finding I draw back from my experiences at American Express. How do you put the customer at the center? How do you think about that brand and that promise and what you're standing for as something that you want to rally your entire organization around? And for us, it is about putting people at the center and figuring out how you do that across channels, not just in those physical channels, but through digital and through every single touch point, and get it so that it's not just, selling products and services, but delivering true value add advice. And I think a lot of that resonates with me and makes me think back to my time and my learnings from American Express.
Well, and then you went from American Express, about 10 years there. You went to Citi, another 9 years, and kind of rose from like sort of director, managing director. It looks like a lot of focus on sort of consumer marketing to different segments overall. What do you take from Citi? What do you take from that you use now over those 9 years?
Yeah, Citi was a great experience for me as well. And I was very focused at Citi on customer engagement marketing. And at Citi, which is, a massive company with many, many millions of customers in the US, credit cards, but also, deposit products, small business, wealth, et cetera. I was really impressed with and enjoyed at Citi the deep analytics and the robustness of the marketing engagement programs that were in place and that we're able to run. Whether it was onboarding customers in the right way onto their product, whether it was campaigns geared around really driving that primacy and top of wallet behavior, so spend stimulation campaigns and credit line increases and balance transfers. Citi was so sophisticated with regard to their ability to use data to understand customer segments, feed that to marketing, and for marketing to be able to have really nuanced strategies and offers and campaigns and increasingly trigger-based campaigns geared towards the needs of different segments. And that's exactly the kind of mentality and analytical data-driven rigor that we're very focused on at TD as we really elevate our performance marketing efforts. And as I said before, focus not just on getting the customers in the door, but how do we then use data to know them and to have the right communication strategies with them throughout their time with us.
Well, and what's interesting is I think that even highlights the challenge for a lot of different companies, where on one hand, when you've talked about being very like human-centric, if we sort of extrapolate from that, it's personalized. Well, data is an incredible tool to personalize things and understand and be able to deliver like, oh, this is my customer and they need this life event happen. They're going to need a solution right now. We can deliver something that adds incredible value to them. But I think companies they challenge themselves. Like a friend of mine, Andy Cunningham, who, worked a long time, PR person for Apple, she will say, well, some companies are customer focused companies. That is their DNA. And others are, data or mechanical. They're engineering focused companies, and you kind of got to pick. But now in this current age, you're like, well, really, we got to be able to do both. We got to do, we got to chew gum and walk. We got to be left brain and right brain. They all work together. So how do you do that? Is that a challenge? How can you be data driven but be unexpectedly human centric?
I think they are not mutually exclusive. It's actually one is dependent upon the other. I think in this day and age, when consumers expect to be able to interact with a bank or any company across channels and increasingly in digital channels, the only way you're going to be able to show up with that kind of human, we know who you are, putting you at the center of things, is if you're properly leveraging data to understand who that person is and what their needs are. So to me, I see it as we will increasingly deliver on the promise of being unexpectedly human as we continue to get better and better with the leveraging of the data that increasingly is coming in faster and more real time to understand who people are, what their needs are, what's the right thing we should be talking about with them at any given moment on any given channel. So to me, data is the enabler to deliver on a human-centric approach as you try to orchestrate that human-centric approach across all of your channels.
Well, and how do you do it when you try to like really engage someone or communicate them? You have to understand them. And I always feel like it's a challenge in marketing because you may think you understand them, but you don't really. I mean, I'll give you an example. We do a lot of, in financial services, we've done a lot of marketing to sort of like, Asian American audiences. I myself am half Thai. I'm an Asian American. And you'll have like, oh, it's Asian American Heritage Month. Let's market on that. Let's important. Let's talk about the heritage. And then you'll go talk to, myself or other Asian folks or people we're marketing to. And they're like, well, I really identify more as my country, my specific. It's not the umbrella as a whole. So if you're talking the umbrella, you're not really speaking to me. You've got to be more specific than that. So how do you think about that of like, I sometimes feel brands, they have like cursory understanding of someone. It's because you're dealing with millions of people, you want to put them into buckets, right? Buckets are convenient, but sometimes it's more nuanced than that. So you go out with this great Asian American heritage communication, and it's like, you know what? Everyone's saying like, I feel like more, I identify as Chinese, I identify as Japanese, I identify as Thai. I'm not this label you put on. How do you get around that?
Yeah, 'cause I think you're right. I think it's not about kind of label-driven segmentation as much as it is the journey, and I think we're all on it, towards more one-to-one communication. Segmentation has been around for a long time, and companies have been increasingly figuring out how to leverage it and be more nuanced. But I think the real win, especially when you're talking about engaging with existing customers where you have access to them across a number of channels, some of which you own those channels, is to really understand who they are at a one-to-one level. You are using data that, of course, you know their name and their demographics, but you also have spend data. You have, behavioral triggers. You see how they're engaging with you online. You're sometimes pulling in third-party data that allows you to form a fuller opinion. You understand that they're coming up on a life stage. Their shopping behaviors indicate they're about to go through a wedding or something like that. Like, it's really more about those kind of personal life and behavior moments that we're trying to understand, because that's when you can drive the most relevance. It's people are not always in the market for a credit card. There are certain times when they're more likely to want a credit card or to need a line of credit to do a house renovation project. The more you can start to predict with as close proximity to when that event is going to happen as possible, the more you can be talking to them about the value we actually have to offer, which is products and services or advice, or how to go about attacking that next moment in their life with the best financial tools. And so that's how I think about it, which is our Martech investment is moving us from a segment-driven world into more of a one-to-one targeting ability.
What about for the industry? Like what, I mean, TD is a big bank, top 10 bank in a competitive industry. There's lots of big players, big brands that are well known. But what can you learn, or do you pay attention to like much smaller players? I mean, it could be, I was at the sort of fintech meetup conference a few weeks back. There are neobanks. Some have gotten pretty big in their own right, but some are, targeting very specific segments. There's, not even banks, more just apps that are interfacing, that give an experience, that are saying, hey, we don't need your TD store. We're gonna, do it all on your iPhone here. Do you pay attention to that? Do you pay attention to the marketing? Do you look outside of just what Bank of America or Citi or Wells Fargo are doing?
Yeah, we have to. I mean, we want to look at fintechs. We also want to look at out of industry big macro players like an Amazon, like an Apple. What do you gather from the best in class at customer experience and digital experience players? I would say with regard to fintechs, it's really interesting. I used to lead new product development at Citi right when fintechs were really taking off. And there was so much conversation about the kind of disintermediation of big banking conglomerates by individual fintechs. What fintechs are, they're so good at often tackling one core problem. They're going to do one element of financial services super well, and they're going to nail the digital experience. And the risk with fintechs is increasingly, as younger generations come up that are more digitally native, they're willing to go work with a bunch of different kind of, siloed individual fintech players to meet all of their financial services needs. And so the challenge is, how do you stay on top of that? How as a larger kind of more traditional bank do you push on, we need to have digital experiences that are competing with the slickness and the smoothness of a fintech experience, but be able to articulate the value of why coming to a place like TD, where all of your financial services needs can be met over the course of your lifetime, because you're only coming to one place and we've got it all. We've got deposits, we've got credit cards. If you're a small business, if you want to get into investments and wealth, commercial bank, we are a full service, one-stop shop. But what we've got to continue to focus on is upping our game to be able to compete on the things that the fintechs, or you look at like an Apple or an Amazon, they just nail it in terms of the digital experiences, the anticipating customer needs, the constant evolution of their of what the experience is when you go to that site or go to that app. So we're constantly triangulating kind of competitive views and best practices from our core competitors, like a Chase or a Wells or a B of A, but also with emerging players and with big tech players who we think really, really get it right. And they've proven they can do it right, even as they've grown to these big conglomerates.
And what do you think for the industry overall? I mean, where do you think this is heading? I mean, maybe as a marketer, the industry as a whole, like, what are you not doing now that you'll think you'll be doing three years from now? Or what are you just starting with now that you think will be, maybe a more essential part of your marketing mix in the next few years?
I'm sure it's the answer that everybody says, which is, how do you leverage Gen AI? It's something that, as a bank, we are absolutely focused on. Obviously have to approach it, with the regulatory lens and the protection lens of the importance of protecting data, of fairness, of privacy, of all those things. But it is absolutely going to change the game. And there's many use cases that we are already exploring at TD that I think will make a big positive impact for marketing and for this bank, and whether that's around content review, content creation. You think about search engine marketing, search engine optimization, whether it's kind of more on the front line and agents being able to synthesize calls, or agents being able to go through a ton of different material to be able to answer a question quickly for someone who's called in. I mean, there's a lot of different use cases that TD is either pursuing or exploring that I think will be absolutely game changing. And so I'm really looking forward to focusing on that as we move through the next couple of years, as you said. So that's a big one. But I also think closer in, just the work that we're doing to connect our channels and drive these more personalized experiences. We're at the stage where we are doing that in a lot of different use cases. But by the time we get to 3 to 5 years from now, I expect that's going to be all the data is real time, the ability to really understand customers and put the right message in front of them, getting some of our transactional type of interactions out of our stores, so our stores can really focus on advice-driven conversations, because our digital experiences are so good that all the transactional needs a customer has can be taken care of, very simply on our app. Those are some of the closer in things that I think will evolve for us over the next couple of years.
You've had, a climb through your whole career. It seems like a consistent climb throughout to where you are now. In terms of just lessons from that, what was the worst advice you ever received?
Worst advice, I don't think I've gotten a lot of bad advice over the years. I think, one thing that has come up time to time is you shouldn't care what other people think. And I sort of disagree with that. I think that, as you build a career, it's important to listen and to understand what other people think, and to think about that as you're building your personal brand, as you're showing up, the way that you treat people. And so I think it's really all about getting that balance right. It's important to stand strong in your convictions, stand up for what you believe, but relationship building and understanding the different views in the room and caring what other points of view might be is really, really important in being able to, I think, build the right relationships to elevate your career.
What have you built your personal brand to be? What do you hope you stand for? And I should mention this in a way, just not everyone, a lot of people are listening, they're not watching this, but I mean, you're a very friendly person. You have a very colorful bow tie on that is probably not traditional in the financial services industry, a colorful shirt inside your kind of suit jacket. What is that by design? Is there, what is you intended your brand to be as CMO?
Well, I think you're picking up on it. It's definitely around authenticity. I think the thing I was most excited about when I joined TD is I could tell from the moment I interviewed, and certainly once I joined, that this was a place that really valued authenticity. It valued employees being able to show up with their whole authentic selves, that we were stronger together, that there was a real value around diversity. of thought and inclusion. And it's something that for me has meant a lot as I've navigated my career, making sure that I'm working at places with people in jobs that allow me to be who I am. And yes, for those not watching, I am wearing a bow tie. It's turned into kind of my signature item. But yeah, that's my style. It's different. It's not traditional, and it's something that I think I do it because I like it, and that's how I feel the most me. But it's something that has turned into almost like a symbol for authenticity, and it fits really well at TD because I'm more than encouraged to continue to be myself and try to use every platform that I have to encourage others at the bank to do the same.
What about the best advice you receive? Have you got some great advice? I mean, you said ignore the people, said don't listen to what other people think, but what about really good advice?
Well, it fits with this conversation because I honestly think, and it's simple and maybe cliche, but it's the advice that people have given me to always be yourself and to not sacrifice that authenticity. And I've had experiences over my career where that has come up, and people have said, well, I don't know, maybe you need a more traditional style if you're gonna elevate in corporate America, and that's been really hard. So I think learning that it's super important to make sure that you're working at a place and with people where you truly can be yourself. People you perform better, you're happier at work, outside of work. You've got to be able to be somewhere where that authenticity is accepted and supported and celebrated. And so the people who along my journey have said, you know, continue to do you do you, and it will be inspiring to other people because there's probably other people out there who you got to see it to be it. So that's probably the best advice I've received.
Jennie Platt, CMO of US of TD. What an interesting conversation, and what an interesting times in, I think, financial services, and can't wait to see what's next. So thank you so much for joining us on Branded.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to meet you, Ben.